Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the scandalous world of the bold and the beautiful. Today is a thrilling day to unpack one of the darkest and most shocking twists we have ever witnessed on the canvas. Grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let us explore the profound psychological depths of a storyline that will forever alter the Spencer and Forster dynasties. The glamorous, meticulously curated halls of Forster Creations have always served as a breathtaking veneer, a glittering facade designed to mask the profound, often devastating human tragedies that unfold behind its closed doors. For decades, this iconic Los Angeles fashion house has been the epicenter of passionate romances, bitter betrayals, and ruthless corporate espionage. Yet, nothing in the storied history of this legacy dynasty could have possibly prepared the audience for the chilling, stomach-churning darkness that is currently festering beneath the surface. At the dark, beating heart of this impending catastrophe is a romantic entanglement that has mutated from a standard daytime rivalry into a horrifying tale of obsession, violation, and psychological warfare. The players in this tragic symphony are Will Spencer, a young man fighting for genuine love, Electra Forrester, a beautiful woman caught in a web of manipulation, and R.J. Forrester, a man whose desperate desire to possess has driven him to commit an unspeakable, unforgivable crime. The simmering tension between Will Spencer and R.J. Forrester has been a masterclass in escalating hostility, a slow-burn rivalry that has captivated viewers for weeks. Will, armed with a genuine, profound affection for Electra, has been forced to navigate a treacherous landscape of sabotage and deceit. He has waited in agonizing suspense for Electra to make her final romantic choice, trusting in the foundation of their past connection. On the opposing side stands R.J. Forrester, a man who has cloaked his toxic jealousy in the noble guise of protection. R.J. has taken an obsessive, almost fanatical vow to defend Electra, aggressively manipulating the narrative to paint Will as the ultimate threat to her happiness. RJ's overprotective nature has bordered on coercive control, actively blinding Electra to the true dangers lurking in their orbit. However, no one, not even the most astute observer of Forrester family dynamics, could have anticipated the terrifying lengths to which RJ would go to secure his ultimate prize. The unraveling of this sinister plot began on an otherwise unremarkable afternoon within the executive suites of Forster Creations. The atmosphere was thick with the usual creative tension, the hum of sewing machines and the frantic energy of impending deadlines, masking the personal warfare being waged in the corridors. Will Spencer, navigating the tense environment of the design office, inadvertently brushed against a tailored jacket draped over a chair, a jacket unmistakably belonging to his cousin and bitter rival, R.J. Forrester. It was in that fleeting moment of accidental contact that the tactile sensation of a small, cylindrical object hidden within the inner pocket caught Will's attention. Driven by an instinctual suspicion forged in the fires of their escalating feud and an undeniable feeling of dread, Will retrieved the object. What he held in his hand was a mysterious, unlabeled prescription bottle containing unfamiliar pills. The plastic container rattled with a sinister echo, a physical manifestation of the dark secrets R.J. had been so desperately concealing behind his self-righteous, protective facade. A wave of profound unease washed over Will. The presence of unlabeled medication in the possession of a man who had been acting increasingly erratic and possessive was a glaring red flag that could not be ignored. Will's mind immediately began to race, connecting fragmented memories and subtle behavioral shifts that had previously gone unnoticed. Rather than confront R.J. immediately with baseless accusations, Will chose a path of calculated investigation. He discreetly pocketed the vial, his heart pounding a heavy rhythm against his ribs as he left the Forster building. He was determined to uncover the chemical composition of these mysterious pills, driven by a terrifying hypothesis that he prayed would be proven wrong. Will took the substance to an independent, confidential laboratory, submitting it for rigorous chemical analysis. The hours that followed were an agonizing purgatory of waiting, a suspended state of anxiety where Will's darkest fears threatened to consume his rationality. When the laboratory results finally arrived, the clinical, sterile terminology on the medical report delivered a blow more devastating than any physical strike. The analysis confirmed Will's most horrifying suspicions with terrifying clarity. The mysterious pills were not harmless supplements or standard prescription medication. They were a highly potent, heavily regulated sedative. The chemical profile of the drug detailed its severe effects. It was a powerful central nervous system depressant capable of inducing profound lethargy, severe disorientation, temporary paralysis of willpower, and, most chillingly, anterograde amnesia. This was a chemical weapon designed to incapacitate, a substance utilized to strip an individual of their autonomy and render them entirely vulnerable. Aswell stared at the stark black text on the white paper. The air in the room seemed to evaporate, leaving him gasping for breath as the monstrous reality of the situation crashed down upon him. The scientific confirmation acted as a horrifying catalyst, unlocking a cascade of memories that Will had previously struggled to contextualize. His mind violently transported him back to a specific, haunting night, the night Electra had suddenly, inexplicably changed her demeanor towards him and ultimately spent the night with RJ. Will meticulously reconstructed the sequence of events in his mind, analyzing every minute detail with the agonizing clarity of hindsight. He remembered Electra's uncharacteristic lethargy, the strange, glazed look in her typically vibrant eyes, and the slight slur in her speech that RJ had smoothly dismissed as mere exhaustion from a grueling day at the design studio. He recalled how docile she had become, how easily she was led away by RJ, her usual fiery independence extinguished like a smothered flame. The puzzle pieces locked together with a sickening, audible click, forming a picture so grotesque it defied comprehension. The realization that struck Will Spencer was a psychological earthquake that shattered the very foundation of his world. Electra's sudden shift in affection, her decision to turn away from him and fall into RJ's bed, was not a matter of a changed heart or a romantic epiphany. It was not a choice at all. It was the result of chemical coercion. R.J. Forrester, the man who paraded around the company proclaiming his solemn vow to protect Electra, had deliberately, maliciously drugged her. He had stolen her agency, violated her autonomy, and orchestrated a night of intimacy while she was in a state of chemically induced vulnerability. The horrifying truth echoed in Will's mind. Electra had been assaulted. The sheer depravity of RJ's actions, the calculated premeditation required to slip a powerful sedative into her drink, revealed a level of sociopathic darkness that Will had never imagined his cousin possessed. The transition within Will Spencer's soul was instantaneous and absolute. The profound heartbreak and confusion that had plagued him for weeks were instantly incinerated, replaced by a pure, unadulterated, blinding rage. This was no longer a rivalry over a woman's affections. This was a fundamental battle between good and evil, a desperate crusade to avenge a horrific violation. The protective instinct inherent in the Spencer bloodline, the fierce, uncompromising loyalty that defined his father Bill, surged through Will's veins like liquid fire. He was no longer just a spurned lover. He was the righteous fury of a man who had uncovered a monster hiding in plain sight. With the laboratory report clutched tightly in his fist, a tangible testament to RJ's monstrous crime, Will stormed out of his location, his destination singular, his purpose absolute. The journey to the Forrester mansion was a blur of adrenaline and righteous fury. Will navigated the winding roads of Los Angeles with a terrifying, singular focus, his grip on the steering wheel white-knuckled and trembling with suppressed violence. The sprawling, luxurious estate of the Forrester family, usually a symbol of elegance and legacy, now loomed before him like a dark fortress harboring a predator. The contrast between the pristine, manicured lawns and the filthy, unforgivable crime committed by the heir apparent was a sickening paradox. Will did not bother with the pleasantries of knocking. He breached the heavy oak doors of the mansion with the force of a hurricane, his eyes scanning the opulent interior for the man who had desecrated the woman he loved. Will found RJ in the grand living room, the very picture of relaxed entitlement, pouring himself a drink from the crystal decanter. The initial standoff was pregnant with a suffocating tension, the silence in the room heavy and oppressive. RJ turned, a smug, condescending smile playing on his lips, ready to deliver another lecture on why Will needed to stay away from Electra. But the words died in his throat as he registered the primal, murderous intensity radiating from Will's eyes. Without a single word, Will raised his hand and hurled the plastic pill bottle across the room. It struck the polished mahogany coffee table with a sharp, violent crack, the pills scattering across the expensive rug like tiny, damning witnesses to RJ's depravity. Will's voice, when he finally spoke, was a low, dangerous growl, vibrating with a rage so profound it seemed to shake the very walls of the mansion. He laid out the evidence, detailing the laboratory results, the timeline, and the horrifying truth of what RJ had done to Electra. If Will had expected a breakdown, a tearful confession, or even a desperate denial, he was chillingly mistaken. The most terrifying aspect of the confrontation was not the accusation itself, but RJ's reaction to it. RJ Forster did not flinch. He did not pale. Instead, a terrifying, sociopathic calmness settled over his features. He looked down at the scattered pills, then back up at Will, his expression devoid of a single ounce of remorse, guilt, or shame. RJ's silence was a thunderous confirmation of his guilt, a brazen acknowledgement of his monstrous actions. When RJ finally spoke, his voice was steady, laced with a sickening conviction that chilled Will to his absolute core. RJ did not deny drugging Electra. Instead, he launched into a twisted, delusional justification that revealed the true, terrifying depths of his psychological fracture. RJ framed his horrific actions not as a crime, but as a necessary, heroic intervention. He looked Will dead in the eye and claimed that the sedative was an act of protection. In RJ's warped, obsessive mind, Will Spencer was a dangerous playboy, a threat to Electra's emotional and physical well-being. RJ argued, with terrifying sincerity, that Electra was too confused, too vulnerable to see the danger Will posed. Therefore, RJ had to take matters into his own hands. He had to neutralize Electra's judgment, to temporarily remove her ability to choose, in order to guide her toward the safety of his own arms. RJ painted himself as the savior, the tragic hero forced to make a difficult, morally ambiguous choice to rescue the maiden from the villain. He genuinely believed that stripping Electra of her consciousness and violating her body was a noble sacrifice made in the name of love and protection. We'll listen to this sickening monologue with mounting horror and revulsion. The sheer audacity, the breathtaking delusion of RJ's savior complex was beyond human comprehension. Will dismantled RJ's twisted logic with verbal venom, exposing RJ not as a protector, but as a cowardly, manipulative predator. He screamed the reality of the situation into RJ's face. That love does not involve chemical subjugation. That protection does not require stripping a woman of her right to consent. Will forced RJ to confront the ugly, undeniable truth that he was a rapist hiding behind a facade of chivalry. But RJ's delusion was impenetrable, a fortress of entitlement built upon generations of Forrester men believing they knew what was best for the women in their lives. RJ sneered, dismissing Will's righteous anger as the pathetic whining of a loser who had been outplayed. The fragile thread of Will's restraint finally, violently snapped. The clash of ideologies, the unbridgeable chasm between Will's genuine love and RJ's toxic possession, could no longer be contained by words. Will lunged forward, the physical manifestation of vengeance, and drove his fist into RJ's smug, unrepentant face. The impact was a sickening crunch of bone and cartilage, the sheer force of the blow sending RJ crashing over the mahogany table, shattering crystal glasses and splintering expensive wood. The brawl that erupted in the Forrester living room was not a civilized scuffle. It was a brutal, visceral, primal battle for survival and retribution. It was the physical culmination of weeks of psychological warfare, a desperate attempt by Will to beat the monstrous reality into RJ's delusional mind. The fight escalated with terrifying speed, tearing through the opulent room like a localized tornado. Heavy lamps were overturned, priceless artwork was knocked from the walls, and the pristine environment was quickly reduced to a chaotic battleground. Blood was drawn, staining the expensive carpets and smearing across the combatants' faces. Every punch Will threw was fueled by the horrifying image of Elektra, drugged and helpless, in the hands of the man he was currently dismantling. RJ, fueled by narcissistic rage and the desperate need to maintain his delusional superiority, fought back with vicious, uncoordinated strikes. The physical altercation was a terrifying metaphor for the destruction RJ had wrought on Elektra's life, a violent shattering of the beautiful, deceptive facade that the Forrester family had maintained for so long. The roar of their struggle echoed through the empty halls, a sound of pure, unadulterated hatred that threatened to tear the very fabric of their respective families apart. Amidst the shattered glass, the blood, and the primal roars of the two men, the true tragedy of the situation loomed like a dark, suffocating cloud, the unseen victim. As Will and RJ tore each other apart in the Forrester mansion, Elektra Forrester remained completely, blissfully unaware of the horrific violation she had endured. She was navigating her world under the false, terrifying assumption that her choices were her own, that her intimacy with RJ was a natural, albeit confusing, progression of their dynamic. The tragic irony of Elektra feeling safe under RJ's obsessive gaze, while remaining entirely ignorant to the fact that he was the architect of her deepest violation, is a narrative masterstroke of pure devastation. She's a ticking time bomb of trauma, a woman walking through a minefield blindfolded, completely unaware that the ground beneath her feet is rigged to explode. The looming fallout of this horrifying revelation threatens to be catastrophic, not just for the individuals involved, but for the legacy of two of Los Angeles's most powerful dynasties. The physical brawl between Will and RJ is merely the opening salvo in a war that will inevitably consume the Spencer and Forrester families. When the truth of RJ's actions is finally brought to light, the collateral damage will be immeasurable. Ridge Forrester, a man who has historically buried his head in the sand regarding his children's flaws, will be forced to confront the undeniable reality that his son is a predator. The Forrester Creations empire, already fracturing under executive hubris and internal power struggles, will face an unprecedented public relations and moral crisis. How can a company championing women's fashion and empowerment reconcile with the fact that its heir apparent utilized chemical coercion to assault a female employee and family member? On the opposing side, the wrath of the Spencer family will be a force of biblical proportions. Bill Spencer, a man renowned for his ruthless, uncompromising defense of his bloodline, will not rest until RJ Forrester is utterly, systematically destroyed. The fragile détente that occasionally exists between the Spencers and the Forresters will be instantly evaporated, replaced by a scorched earth campaign of vengeance and legal warfare. Liam Spencer, currently orchestrating strategic corporate moves, will undoubtedly pivot his formidable intellect toward ensuring RJ faces the maximum legal and social consequences for his crimes. The revelation of the drugging will act as a nuclear detonation in the center of the canvas, radiating shockwaves that will permanently alter alliances, shatter marriages, and redefine the moral boundaries of every character involved. We have reached a terrifying point of no return in the bold and the beautiful. A line has been crossed that cannot be uncrossed, a taboo shattered that will forever stain the legacy of the characters involved. The narrative has ventured into the darkest, most uncomfortable corners of human psychology, exploring the terrifying reality of coercive control, the delusion of toxic possession, and the devastating impact of stolen agency. The anticipation of the inevitable moment when Electra learns the truth, when the veil of amnesia is lifted and she is forced to confront the monster she believed was her protector, is a source of profound, agonizing dramatic tension. It is a storyline that demands our attention, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable realities of consent and manipulation disguised as love. As we brace ourselves for the explosive aftermath of Will and RJ's brutal confrontation, one thing is absolutely certain. The landscape of Los Angeles will never be the same. The blood spilled on the Forrester living room floor is a permanent stain, a visceral reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the glamour. Well, Spencer has uncovered the horrifying truth, but the battle for justice and the agonizing process of healing for Electra has only just begun. We will continue to monitor every shocking development, every tear shed, and every battle fought in this devastating saga. Thank you for joining us for this intense analysis, and please share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think Electra will react when she discovers the truth? What will Bill Spencer do to exact his revenge on RJ?